Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm John Ralston. Lieutenant Governor Brian Krolicki was indicted this week, and he says it's Harry Reid who's out to get him, the Senate Majority Leader. Actually, we have the guy who got him. Conrad Hafen, who's the head of the Public Integrity Unit, presented the case before the grand jury. You mentioned before the break, and I thought this was interesting. You have to essentially prove that he willfully, or knowingly, or fraudulently did this. I mean, there has to be a consciousness of mind here. This can't have been an accident. I know you can't talk that much about the evidence, but show how you would prove, hypothetically, in a case like that, that the person actually knew what he was doing was wrong.
Well, I don't think I could do that even hypothetically.
I was afraid you might say that.
Yeah, but again, the statute's clear. Those are alternative theories. And at this point, obviously, because there was an indictment, the grand jury felt that there was at least probable cause that Mr. Krolicki and Ms. Besser may have committed the crime.
In other words, and again, I don't want to get into a taboo area here with you, but you had a bunch of witnesses, including people who worked in the office, telling you what, I assume, what happened there. Based on that evidence, the grand jury then says, oh, look at this statute, willfully, knowingly, or fraudulently. We can prove that.
Well, that's the process.
Right.
That you present the evidence, and the standard is whether there was slight or marginal evidence presented to them constitute probable cause that they may have committed the crime. I
still haven't seen this cleared up. You've heard Krolicki and you've heard his lawyers talk about this issue of going to the grand jury versus another route. Let me show you what his lawyer, Kent Robinson, said last week about the likelihood of his client's indictment. They went out in front of this and said he's probably going to get indicted. If he's a ham sandwich, using the old cliche, he's indicted, okay? Robinson said, referring to the ease with which prosecutors can obtain grand jury indictments. He then sent a letter to the Attorney General, your boss, Catherine Cortez Masto, asking that she abandon the grand jury route, citing Lieutenant Governor's cooperation. In exchange for him being completely forthright and completely candid and completely cooperative, he gets what is essentially a slap in his professional face. It is a cliche. I've heard it from lawyers all through the years. Anybody can get indicted before a grand jury. It's easy. You can indict a ham sandwich. Why did you go that route?
Well, I don't know if it's easy, and I would take issue with that. But we have the discretion, like every prosecutor in this state, to either proceed to a preliminary hearing or to a grand jury. And like every prosecutor in this state, we exercised our prerogative and our discretion in this case to take it to a grand jury. And that's not unusual. I cite the Moncrief case.
Former Las Vegas City Councilwoman who accused of some campaign contribution violations, etc. And you got her indicted before a grand jury,
and the Clark County District Attorney's Office proceeds to grand juries on high-profile cases as well.
I don't know if you can talk about the specific reason in this case why you went to a grand jury or not a preliminary hearing, but what are the factors that you use in choosing to go before a grand jury as opposed to a preliminary hearing?
Well, I really can't get into that. Again, the law allows for it. We exercise our discretion like every prosecutor in this state has the discretion to do.
But generally, though, you can talk about why you go to a grand jury in a preliminary hearing, can't you? I mean, obviously you have the discretion. You always have a choice to do it. There's a lot of smoke being put out there by Krolicki and his advocates, and I want to see if there's any fire there. Would you have had more trouble getting this through a preliminary hearing, do you think?
Well, I don't want to comment on that, okay? Again, we've done nothing wrong in this regard, irrespective of what Mr. Krolicki's attorney has said publicly. We've exercised our discretion. The law allows for us to either proceed to a preliminary hearing or to a grand jury. That's the discretion that we have as a prosecuting agency, and it's exercised throughout the whole state for those prosecutors that have that opportunity.
Is it unusual for an attorney for a potential defendant to send a letter saying, listen, go a different route and see if you can get us that way? Is that an unusual thing to see?
In my career as a career prosecutor, I have never had that type of a letter.
And so it is very unusual. Is there a reason, I mean, is there any cases yet that you've had as head of the Public Integrity Unit where you've gone a different route?
Well, we've had some cases involving just state employees where there wasn't as much evidence involved. It wouldn't be such a lengthy process where we've gone in and conducted a preliminary hearing.
Okay, let me be a cynic for a second. It's a hard thing for me to do, Mr. Hafen, as you may know. But here's what someone might say. Gosh, you go after an elected official, whether it's Janet Moncrief or Brian Krolicki. If you go before a grand jury, a set of usual citizens who are pretty cynical about the behavior of public officials in general, you're more likely to get them if you go that route than if you were to go the other route. Is that just me being cynical, or could that be right?
No, I think that's just you being cynical. Again, you take a look at the case, the facts and circumstances, and you exercise your discretion, and you exercise that discretion. Like I say, every other prosecutor in the state has the ability to do that if they have a grand jury in their county. Now, if Mr. Robeson, Mr. Krolicki's attorney, doesn't like that approach, he can certainly go back to the legislature and ask them to do away with the grand jury process.
I'm sure he'll get right on that. All right, a lot more to talk about with this case. Indeed, we're going to show you an interview that I did right here on Face to Face with the lieutenant governor and the treasurer who made the original allegations against him. Back in a moment.
You're watching Face to Face with John Ralston, a program presented in partnership with the Las Vegas Sun, Cox Communications, and KLAS TV.